Special President's Coordinating Council is meeting virtually tonight. This gathering is made up of, amongst others, cabinet ministers, premiers and the leadership from Eskom to find lasting solutions to the crippling energy crisis. It all comes after Western Cape Premier Alan Winde called on national government to provide concrete solutions to the power outages. Will the council meeting yield any positive results? Well, let's unpack that with energy analyst Chris Yelland. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, my immediate thoughts is really, what is there to talk about? Surely everyone at this point understands the true extent of this energy crisis.
Yeah, you would think so. And there have been many consultations by the president in the past. You may remember that 6 months ago, he presented his emergency plan to deal with the load shedding. And before he released that plan, there were innumerable meetings with labor and business and communities and political parties, and it was very extensive consultation. And finally, the plan was released. Then we've had 6 months of further talking by this committee, this so-called NECOM, the National Energy Crisis Committee. They've set up a number of working groups, talk, but we're just not seeing them getting over the line. And so now there's more consultation. So this week we had the stage 6 load shedding for a couple of weeks. And now we see another round of consultations with all parties. I mean, there's been political parties, there's been business, there's been labor, Eskom, you name it. If one thing can be said about our president is that he consults things to death. And I think it's time now for action. And I am hearing that he may be speaking to the nation again on this matter over the weekend. But that is still to be announced or seen.
Yeah, you say we're not seeing them get over the line, I mean, and the over-consultation. Have members of the executive across the various spheres of government been having the right conversations? Is it a matter of the right conversations, or is it just, double-checking and triple-checking that they are indeed on the right path?
I know that this National Energy Crisis Committee has been meeting, its work streams have been meeting, and they have recently released sort of a progress update, etc., etc. But as I say, not many things have got over the line. And the hard part is just getting it over the line and then starting the action. So we're seeing all this talk. I do think that the plan that the president presented was the result of this over-consultation. And if you look at the plan, it tries to build into it something for everybody. So all the different views of all these different parties have to be taken into account. And so you get this plan which is trying to be all things to everybody, or at least when you look at the plan, you say, that was my point that I put in. Yeah. And the trouble is the plan becomes very complex, and instead of focusing on immediate implementable short-term issues, it also deals with medium-term and long-term issues, which of course are necessary. But until we see immediate results, the public is getting angrier and angrier. And with the price increase of electricity announced recently, there is a pent-up anger. And it's playing out, with legal actions, with protests, and all manner of civil sort of unrest. I won't say at this stage it's dangerous unrest, but there are deep political consequences to the load shedding that we're experiencing. Not only economic consequences and social and economic, it really impacts the country, the whole mood, and it has a political consequence. And I think with the president about to make State of the Nation address shortly, and then followed by the budget speech, I think the political consequences are very high in the mind of the president and the politicians, and especially with the elections.
I'm hoping that the line will stay as we have and expand on this conversation. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana said that South Africa is going to be able to call load shedding a thing of the past. That's within the next 12 to 18 months. And he was talking about stage 6 load shedding having to ease within the roughly 5 months in line with new measures and the revamping of power plants taking effect. What are your views?
Well, we've heard it all before. The president himself, the deputy president, they have regularly said that, even President Zuma said, it's all going to be over soon. But it's not over soon. Even De Ruyter, when De Ruyter came in, he said, give me 18 months, I'll sort this out. He found the job to be somewhat more complex, and what he had to deal with was not what he expected. We've had Gwede Mantashe saying that, give him 6 to 12 months and he'll sort the matter out. We now have Minister Godongwana saying, give me 18 months. I even heard Ted Blom saying, give me 3 to 6 months. Of course, it's all nonsense. These things cannot be sorted out so quickly, and it creates the wrong expectations. We need to work on doing the right thing for a long time to resolve these problems.
Yeah. Do you think it's a matter of financial backing on the energy projects? Do you think they'll make a difference at all? Or are these problems purely technical?
You can throw money at problems. It's not about the money, actually. There is money, and they will find money. So it's not about throwing money at the problem. You've also got to spend money wisely and carefully. It's quite difficult to spend, 200 billion rands quickly. It's just, to do that is not something that you can do. So it's not just a case of throwing money, nor is it just a technical problem. Of course, there are technical issues, but it's far from being just a technical problem. There are policy issues that politicians make. There are regulatory issues that the regulators make. There's planning issues that the planners have to make. And so there's a whole wide-ranging set of issues, and it's certainly not a case of just the money.
Yeah. You say the deadline of the 12 to 18 months is the same old story we've heard, but and you say it's unrealistic. Then what would make sense? What would a realistic plan look like in terms of timelines?
Yeah, so, this 18-month story is sort of premised on, give me 18 months and we'll improve the energy availability factor of the existing fleet and bring on, 6,000 or 7,000 megawatts of generation capacity that already exists but is broken down. That is what the premise of the whole thing is. And it's easier said than done. Yes, if you could raise the energy availability factor to 75% from where it is at the moment, 60%, in fact, just a bit lower than 60, about 58%. If you could lift that to 75%, our problems would go away. But you can't. It's not possible in 18 months to lift the energy availability factor from 58% to 75%, much as they would love to. The point is the energy availability factor is still today on a downward trend, and it has been for the last 10 years. And when you have a downward trend, which is the metric of an average of about 90 generators, you cannot change the average of 90 generators and make a step change or even a change in direction of the energy availability factor trend. The trend is what we call a continuum. It is a continuous graph without sudden changes or discontinuities or step changes. So before you can start going up, if it's on a downward trend for the last 10 years, before it can start going up, it has to stabilize and curve down and then curve and stabilize and bottom out and slowly increase again. It is not possible to do this and then that. It is a continuum. And so suggestions that this can suddenly be sorted out in 18 months are just unrealistic, simply because you can't maintain all the generators, the broken down generators, simultaneously within 18 months. It's not possible.
So if you had to advise the president, what would you say his action plan should be?
Yeah, we've got to focus on short-term issues that are possible. Now, what is possible within the 6 months to 1 year frame is to bring on massive amounts of solar PV and battery energy storage on domestic and commercial and manufacturing and parking lots and buildings, farms around the country. And these are what we call self-generation, embedded generation, and distributed generation, paid for and installed by customers, small customers, residential customers, medium-sized, small businesses, thousands and thousands of them. And this has to be, first of all, allowed through legislation. Secondly, it has to be encouraged through messaging. And lastly, it needs to be incentivized through feed-in tariffs and tax incentives. I just want to focus on the feed-in tariffs. At the moment, it is not possible for domestic consumers and commercial consumers to generate power back into the grid and be compensated for it. If you would allow this, and if you would incentivize it, it would happen on a huge scale. This is not rocket science. It's nothing unproved. This is happening all around the world, but not in South Africa.
Very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this conversation. Energy analyst Chris Yelland speaking, of course, ahead of President Cyril Ramaphosa meeting stakeholders over the energy crisis, that virtual meeting taking place this evening. Still